The night was cold, cruel, and merciless. The kind of night when the streets turn into silent deserts and shadows hide more pain than anyone dares to admit. On the corner of a forgotten alley, beneath the dim light of a broken street lamp, sat a young girl no older than 17. Her clothes were torn, her shoes had holes, and her face carried the exhaustion of someone who had lived lifetimes of suffering in too few years. She was not a child anymore, though her age said otherwise. Life had stripped her of innocence far too early. She was homeless, alone in a world that never gave her a chance, abandoned by fate, and invisible to the rushing crowd that passed her each day. People saw her, yes, but only as a stain on the pavement, a problem to be ignored, a soul not worth saving. Yet, what nobody knew that night was that destiny was watching. And fate, sometimes cruel, sometimes kind, had chosen this girl for something greater. For on that bitter evening, she would do something small, something humble, something human. And in that very moment, a pair of eyes watching from the shadows would witness her truest self, and that act of kindness would change her life forever. Before I continue, if you believe in the power of kindness, in second chances, and in stories that remind us what it means to be human, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need hope today, and subscribe to our channel StoryNest. Your support helps us spread more stories that touch hearts around the world. The girl's name was Emily. Once, long ago, she had a home filled with laughter. She remembered her mother's soft lullabies, the warmth of hot meals, and a small bedroom with pink curtains where she would curl up with her teddy bear. But life had ripped it all away when her mother fell ill, and medical bills swallowed everything. Her father left, unable to handle the weight of poverty, and by the time Emily was 15, she had nothing left but the streets. She learned to survive on scraps, to endure cold winters with newspapers as blankets, and to bear the stares of strangers who judged her without knowing her story. Still, Emily's heart never hardened. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, pain wore down her spirit, but somehow she held on to a fragile kindness. She believed, even when the world gave her no reason, that helping others mattered. Perhaps because she wished someone had helped her once. That night, as she searched the trash bins outside a bakery for discarded bread, she saw him, a frail old man curled against the wall, his face pale, his hands trembling as he clutched his empty stomach. His eyes told the story of defeat, of days without food, of a body giving up. Emily paused, torn between her own hunger and the man's suffering. She had found half a loaf of bread, stale but edible, and she hadn't eaten in almost 2 days. Every part of her body screamed for her to keep it, but as she watched the old man's lips quiver in silent pain, something within her whispered louder, "He needs it more." So, without hesitation, she walked over, broke the bread in two, and pressed the larger piece into his hands. "Eat," she whispered softly, though her own voice shook from weakness. The man's eyes filled with tears as he accepted it, whispering thanks through cracked lips. Emily forced a smile, even as her stomach groaned, and sat beside him so he wouldn't feel alone. She chewed her small piece slowly, trying to trick her body into believing it was enough. But what she didn't know was that just a few steps away, a man was watching. His name was Daniel Carter. He was a man of wealth, power, and respect, a CEO whose face often appeared in magazines, though behind his sharp suits and public image, he carried a private pain of his own. Daniel was a single father, raising a little girl named Lily after his wife had died tragically 2 years earlier. He provided everything money could buy for his daughter, but there were things money could never replace: gentleness, warmth, compassion. And those were the very things he worried she was missing. That night, he had left the office late and, for reasons even he couldn't explain, taken a detour through that forgotten alley. Maybe it was fate pulling him there. Maybe it was his late wife's invisible hand guiding his steps. And there he stood, quietly watching a homeless girl share the only food she had with a stranger weaker than herself. Daniel felt something stir deep in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years, a raw, aching admiration. In her torn clothes and weary eyes, Emily had nothing. Yet, in that nothingness, she gave everything. Days passed, but Emily did not know her life had already begun to change. Daniel could not get the image out of his mind. In his world of business meetings, profits, and polished lies, kindness often felt extinct. Yet that girl, with nothing to her name, carried a heart richer than all the millionaires he had ever met. He found himself searching for her again, his car slowing whenever he passed the alley. And finally, one rainy evening, he saw her once more, drenched in cold water, shivering under a cardboard sheet. Something inside him broke. He knew he couldn't walk away. But this wasn't just charity. Daniel didn't want to be another stranger who tossed her a coin and disappeared. He wanted to know her story, to understand her strength, and maybe, though he didn't dare admit it yet, to bring her into his and Lily's life. Because deep down, he sensed she had something to teach them both. So slowly, carefully, Daniel reached out. At first, Emily resisted. Years of abandonment had taught her not to trust easily. But Daniel was patient. He offered her warm meals, asked nothing in return, and even arranged safe shelter for her. And when he introduced her to his daughter, something miraculous happened. Little Lily, who had closed herself off since her mother's death, smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in years when Emily sat beside her and read her a story. It was as though Emily carried the very warmth Lily had been missing. The bond grew, quietly but powerfully. Emily began to believe she could belong somewhere again, though fear always lingered, fear that it was temporary, that she'd be cast aside once more. But Daniel, seeing both her vulnerability and her strength, knew he couldn't let her slip away. He admired not just her kindness, but her resilience, her unbreakable spirit. And slowly, his admiration became something deeper, something he hadn't dared to feel since his wife's passing. Life was not instantly perfect. Emily struggled to adjust to trust, to stability, to the idea that she was worthy of love. She carried scars no one could see, nights when memories of hunger and loneliness haunted her. But Daniel and Lily stood by her, reminding her she wasn't alone anymore. And in turn, Emily gave them something money never could: hope, laughter, and the healing power of love. What began as a single act of kindness in a dark alley turned into a story of redemption, of broken lives pieced back together, of a family built not by blood, but by choice. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the smallest act of kindness can ripple into something life-changing, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone you care about. And don't forget to subscribe to StoryNest so we can continue bringing you stories that remind us of the beauty still left in this world. Before we end, I have a special request: drop a comment below and tell us, what's one small act of kindness you believe can change someone's day? Your words might inspire someone else to spread kindness today. Because sometimes, hope is born not from grand gestures, but from a single piece of bread shared on a cold night, and the courage to care when nobody else does.